Okay, so look, we are going to now introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Kelsea Koenreich. So very proud of that. And I'm not going to say any more than that. She's going to introduce herself, and there's nothing for me to say because you'll really get who she is when she starts to talk. So listen keenly. Again, there's going to be another little mini workshop after this. This is how it's rolling. You kind of got the flavor of how this is going. And if you can listen from your heart and not your head, then everything that's being said will make the difference. So let it in and let us into you. And let's have this community be a real community. All right, Kelsea.
So we all aspire to make our mark on this world. That's why we're here. But oftentimes, shame and embarrassment can actually prevent us from getting where we want to go. When we pursue our goals, we pursue them with ambition, determination, but doubt and hesitation can stop us, can prevent us from making the impact that we want to make. But what if I told you that in order to become true leaders, we actually need to embrace our past mistakes? We need to turn them into valuable lessons, lessons that we share with the world, lessons that make a mark on the world. So what if I told you that shame, the very same thing that holds us back, is actually our greatest asset? I still remember the spring sunny day on Siesta Key Beach. I'm sure you're all familiar. And I was there sitting in the sand with a cooler full of alcohol to my right. I had one goal that day. My goal was to drink as much of that alcohol in the cooler as possible. My life was actually pretty simple back then. I woke up each morning and I had two goals. Number one, go to work. That's if I didn't call out. Number two, figure out where I was going to party that night. But that day, everything changed. I got behind the wheel of my car and was arrested for the third time. I woke up in the medical unit at Sarasota County Jail. And I met my eyes in the mirror for what felt like the very first time. And it was in that moment that the shame and the guilt finally piled on. I felt the heaviness, and it was that same shame and guilt that actually prevented me from ever moving forward and kept me coming right back to that place. But I found the courage to make peace with what I had done. I found somehow the ability to accept all of my mistakes. And I started to ask for help. And I started to think about, what kind of life do I really want to create? And then I started sharing my story. And people responded. And then it became really clear to me that the same things that I was ashamed of held valuable lessons for others. And that's when I dedicated my life to helping others. That shame that I felt, those valuable lessons I've continued day after day to transform. And I found a new purpose. A purpose to take ambitious, successful women and help them to not just build a thriving business, but an intentional life. And today, I want to help you take your shame, your mistakes, your embarrassment, your deepest regrets, and actually transform them into your most valuable asset. You see, shame is a normal emotion. Raise your hand if you've felt it. We've all felt it. There's different ways that we handle it, though. One way that we handle it is suppression. We know this one well. We hope that if we just don't look at it, it might go away. I remember when I started my business online in 2012. And I was so excited because I was like, I can be anybody I want to be online. Nobody will know. And I hope they don't find out. The problem was everything that I said and marketing my business actually became incredibly difficult because everything I said was filtered. I felt like I couldn't be fully myself. And so the connection that I wanted to create, the change that I wanted to make was impacted. You see, suppression just doesn't work. Because when you disconnect, when you don't fully embrace all parts of you, you are cutting people off from reaching you. There's another. This one is a favorite for my clients. It's called overcompensation. This is when we focus so hard in one area that we hope the shame will just shrink. This one doesn't work either. As high-achieving women, we relate our worthiness to our productivity. We think the more that we do, the better we are. This was definitely the case for my client who came to me with an incredibly successful business that she had built solely to help people with a certain disability. She was making her mark on the world, and she wanted to make a bigger mark. Her problem? Saying yes to everything. Loading her calendar so full she couldn't breathe. So we peeled back the layers. The truth is that as badly as she wanted to rest and be still, she couldn't because of the guilt and the shame that she felt. Watching her two entrepreneurial parents run themselves into the ground at the expense of what we call success is all she knew. And so overcompensation only does one thing. It burns you out and stops you from reaching the goals that you have. There's a third thing that we often do with shame. To be honest, I think this is the worst one. You can simply let the shame win. And when you let the shame win, you stay right where you are. You let the shame shrink you into just a fraction of what you could be. You let it keep you from stepping into your fullest and highest potential. This showed up for me as my business continued to rise. I found myself in rooms I was very uncomfortable in. Not because I was missing the skills needed, but simply because I didn't want people to know where my skill set was actually born. I speak to women with big dreams and big goals every day. And they are frozen by something called imposter syndrome. Anybody felt this one? Imposter syndrome is interesting because it's rooted in shame. We're afraid of people seeing us. In fact, there is a study in the International Journal of Behavioral Science that says people who are struggling with imposter syndrome are less likely to ask for feedback or criticism. Therefore, not getting the skills and the knowledge that they need to grow. You see, when you let the shame win, you stay small. And truly, there's no person on this earth that their desire is to stay as small as possible. So unless any of you in this room prefer to stay stagnant, which I don't think you do, this isn't the direction that you want to take. So we have suppression, we have overcompensation, and we have letting the shame win. So what do? How do we overcome this? How do we actually leverage our shame into our greatest asset? I'm going to tell you in 3 very simple steps. Simple's the key word. The first thing you have to do is find acceptance. First step's actually the hardest. Finding acceptance means all of the parts of you that you feel are hidden, are dark, are unacceptable to anybody around you, you're going to accept them. You're going to learn to love them. When I was very uncomfortably working my way through finding acceptance, I found this trick, and I want to share it with you guys. This trick was, to find acceptance, I knew I needed 2 things. I knew I needed forgiveness and self-compassion. So how was I going to give that to myself? The 2 things that we so easily give to everyone else are the hardest to give to ourselves. And what I found, my simple trick, is that I realized that I too am a human. Interestingly enough, we separate ourselves. And so it brought me back to earth, and I said, if I'm giving this love, this compassion, this care, this forgiveness, if I wouldn't judge someone else for their past mistakes, who they were, where they had been, what they had done, why would I do that for myself? And so this is your reminder. You too are a human. There's a study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that links self-compassion and shame. It says that people who give themselves self-compassion are more likely to overcome self-criticism, more likely to forgive themselves, and less likely to feel shame. So acceptance is your first step. Your next step, you're going to have to bridge this personal and professional gap. This gap that when you walk into one room, you're one person, and when you walk into another, you are someone else. This idea, this heaviness that you can't be fully yourself based upon what room you are in. That you can't carry the weight of your full story based upon what you are participating in. You have to learn to share your story. There was a client that came to me, and I was overwhelmed with joy when she asked me to help her. This woman had overcome so much: addiction, pain. She was living a life that was hurtful to not just her, but the people around her. And so she changed it. She recreated her entire identity, and in doing that, knew that it was her purpose to help others. And I remember us working together and encouraging her to share all parts of her, telling her that it was okay that she had been there, that she could share where she had been, what she had said, what she had done, and where she was. And she, with hesitation, as most of my clients do, did it anyways. And I still remember the message that she sent me when she said she signed a client into her program, not because of her program features, but because they had followed her journey and watched her transformation, because she was who she was. Brené Brown says, if we can share our story with someone who meets us with empathy and understanding, shame cannot survive. If you learn to share all parts of you and accept all parts of you, shame cannot survive. And the third thing that I want you to do, this is a very tangible, actionable thing. So get out your pens and paper. And I'm going to give you a series of questions that you're going to take yourself through every time you mess up. Because remember, you're a human. You're going to fail, you're going to fall, you're going to do things you're embarrassed of, and you're going to keep doing that. But it's okay because we're humans. And now you have a tool. So the questions that you're going to take yourself through are, number one, what am I embarrassed of? What is the thing? What is the experience? What am I embarrassed or ashamed of? Number two, when I went through that experience, what did I learn or how did I grow? When I went through that experience, what did I learn or how did I grow? Your third question is, because of what I learned, how do I do things differently? Because of what I learned, how do I do things differently? And the last question, what value can that lesson bring to others? This series of 4 questions takes you from disempowered and embarrassed and ashamed to empowered with knowledge, skills, results, lessons that then it is your duty to go on and share with the world so you can make that mark. So first, you're going to find that acceptance. Secondly, you're going to bridge that gap, take off the mask, the coats, all the heavy things that you're wearing. And then you're going to have that tool every time you fall. And when you do this, there's something else wonderful that happens. You lessen the possibility of living your life with an abundance of regret. You lessen the possibility of when you look back at the end of your days, thinking, I never stepped into what I could have been. And you can use anticipated regret to start making better decisions right now. Because the greater impact that you desire is found inside of your shame. And in order to be true leaders, we have to embrace our past mistakes and transform them into valuable lessons to share with the world. Shame is not only not shameful, shame is your greatest asset. Thank you.